Okay, I think we're cooking with grease finally. Just make sure we're good and going. Awesome. Excellent. Yay, we're winning. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Dowell-Vest, and I'm coming live from the living room for the second time today. I gave my presentation earlier, and technology is a funny thing, but we're here, and we're going to talk about storytelling and the power of stories, the power of technology and education, and how it all comes together. Before I go into my presentation, I just want to give a shout out to my fellow cohort members, Prairie View A&M University's higher ed PhD program, education leadership. I've watched my peers give amazing talks today, and I just want to say congrats to Rashika, Bakita, Ashley, Kim, Nate, Stephen, Andrea, Valicia. I couldn't be a part of a stronger, more amazing collective of people, and all right. That said, I'm going to move into my presentation. Fredrick Douglass was a blogger, and he was. And then you may think, okay, well, Teresa, what in crazy town are you talking about? I'm not talking about blogging in the sense that we think of it today on social media or, on your favorite website or, that type of construct. In 2015, I taught at the University of Virginia. I taught an amazing group of students at UVA through the Carter Woodson Institute for African and African American Studies. In that class, we were conversing about the power of social media, the power of technology, the power of film, the power of books, music, and I said to them, what do you think if I were to say Fredrick Douglass was a blogger? And the class just completely fell apart. They thought it was, me being a jokester, as I usually am. But I was completely serious in that moment. And that Fredrick Douglass was a communicator. He had a message that was incredibly important to him and to many people of that day. He took that form of communication and he found the type of media that best presented that message. In his case, public speaking, books. He traveled quite a bit. In his life, he was the most photographed human on the planet. That's how much he spoke. That's how much he got out there and put his media in front of his network. The network of people who eventually aligned themselves with his mission, agreed with his mission, and kind of grew the objectives that his message conveyed, and thus creating the change he wanted to see. So he had a message. He determined the media that he wanted to use to convey that message. He found his network or his tribe that can help usher that message further out into the world to create the change, the world he wanted to see, the world we all wanted to see at that time. And for that reason, Fredrick Douglass is in fact a blogger. When you think about people who use the internet, when you think about people who use Twitter and hashtag activism, and when you think about people who use film and music, what they are doing is telling their message, conveying their message for change, whether it's a change in love, a change in work, a change in politics, a change in wellness, health, stay at home, right? We have these messages that are then conveyed by media, and very much like Fredrick Douglass, we're all bloggers. My medium of choice is film. Cameras, as you see behind me, there's a camera here. My medium of choice is the visual art of telling stories through filmmaking. Also, do it through my camera on my cell phone. So I teach film at Prairie View A&M University, and I'm constantly telling the students it isn't just about putting the technology on a tripod and hitting record. It's really about the intention of the message you want to convey. What's your message? What's the media you want to choose? Where's your tribe and who's going to support your message? And then finally, what's the expected outcome? What's the why? The change you want to see. My change began with this thing, a trapper keeper. a trapper keeper. You know what a trapper keeper is. It is a notebook. It's a notebook, but when I was in middle school, elementary school, middle school, I remember laying on the floor in Kmart, crying my eyes all the way out because I wanted that thing. I wanted a trapper keeper. And years later, in 2013, I'm at a Walmart in Atlanta, Georgia, and there's a kid laying on the floor, crying his eyes out. He wanted a trapper keeper. And I was like, they still doing this? Like, people still over a trapper keeper? So I went to Facebook and I posted a post about what I saw and then what my own story was. And that story just took off, and it garnered this larger conversation that resulted in a number of things. Number one, I met the woman who would become my wife. We ended up bantering back and forth over the trapper keeper, and it flourished even more to the point where Michelle and I were on the cover of the Washington Post talking about how stories and technology can impact personal lives and relationships. That then allowed us to be invited to the White House July 2014, and then I was able to go back and work the White House again within my capacity in filmmaking and looking at the innovations in technology and storytelling. So what I want to continue to go through today is looking at the power of storytelling, the power of technology, and how we can use it in educational forums. What you see here behind me is a series of speakers that I asked to speak during this pandemic to my classes. Now, if I'm a film teacher at Prairie View, you can imagine that my sessions are filled with activity, lights and cameras and a whole lot of tripods and moving stuff around. And when you're in quarantine, when you're in this pandemic, and we're away from each other and they don't have access to that equipment, we really had to rethink how we would teach technology and storytelling. And we had a whole bunch of guests. A lot of people, contacts of mine from my days of working in Los Angeles, came through and used the internet, used Zoom, used technology to convey their stories and then empower our students with the idea, with the belief that they can leave Prairie View, work in Los Angeles, work in New York, and be amazing storytellers themselves. We did that through technology. So what I want to convey in this talk is that we did not invent social communication. Like, this is not some new thing. I know the Twitters and the Facebooks and all the devices, the platforms that we use, the platforms that Dr. Lisa Thompson has us using quite a bit for our education technology class. We're doing a lot of work that was invented long before us. It was created during the days when enslaved humans had a message of freedom, a desire for freedom. The media that they used were songs and hairstyles and clothing patterns and the ability to read the stars. The network that they forged were people who, like them, insisted that all humans be free. And the change that they wanted to see was, in fact, the abolition of slavery. So using communication, media, network, and change, in that order, garnered the world that they wanted to see of that day. The same can be said about the civil rights movement. The communication, freedom, equality, justice, the media of the day, sermons, Negro spirituals, the act of marching, conveying physically that in numbers we desire this change. The network of the day, people watching television, people all over the world receiving these messages, receiving this media and going, yeah, I believe in that too. Ultimately, for the change that we saw during the civil rights movement. Again, 80s and 90s, we see this recycling of this behavior of the message, justice, equality, the media, music, dance, fashion, the network, young people, innovative young people creating a new form of music, hip hop, rap, to convey the change they want to see in the world. Communication, media, network, change. We inherited social communication. We inherited the ways of creating change in the world by applying the latest technology of the day. So how are we using our voices? This young man represents a mass of people in Baltimore who use the internet to convey the message of equality and change via social media, Twitter, Facebook, hashtag activism, built a network of followers, people who learned about what was happening in Baltimore, in Ferguson, via the internet, that network, to create the change we want to see. So we talked today about social communication, social network, social change, social media. And a lot of times we hear people talk about these things, but they use them interchangeably as if they mean the exact same thing. But if you give them a particular order, and I call it the progressive social syntax. This is a conceptual framework that I'm working on, some of the studies that I'm doing in my PhD work. Progressive social syntax looks at the build up that we use for conveying a message, that things don't happen overnight, that it's progressive, that a message that Fredrick Douglass may have, it rested with him first, and then progressively it gained some momentum. Social, it requires other people to participate in your message to make the change that you want to see. And then finally, syntax, that everything has a particular order. That if you work the order, it might work back for you. That just haphazardly putting things on the internet may not be the most effective way to convey a message. Decide very clearly what your message is. What's the outcome that you want? Maybe start at change and work your way back. By being clear about your objective, your message, clear how you want to convey that message, media, clear who you want to share that message and will likely agree with your message so that you can create the change that you want to see. So, what we're talking about, there we go. What we're talking about is putting all of this in order, in rhythm, communication, media, network, change. So if we communicate and realize that this is a native trait, we're all storytellers by nature, use it. Media, artifacts of the humanities. It's every song, every poem, every book, every public speech, every film. Use it. You build your network, find your tribe, forge new relationships if you have to. Use your network. And then finally, bring about the change that you want. Okay? So I'm going to roll through a few pictures of storytellers, people conveying messages that they want to share with other people. It's a native trait. We've been doing it since the beginning of time. We've been doing it through speeches and Negro spirituals and art on cave walls. We did it through hip hop and hashtag activism. It's the media, the artifacts of the humanities that we're using to convey our message. We build our network, we forge new relationships, and these are my people. That's my tribe. My students at Prairie View A&M University. They're the next generation of storytellers and news anchors. And we bring about the change we want. When we bring about the change we want, we realize and we have to agree that Fredrick Douglass was a blogger. And so are you. Use your tools, use your voice, use your stories to create the world that you want. Even in quarantine, we can go out and affect the world from right here. If you have any questions, I'm looking live here. Anyone have any questions? Whew, child, I'm out of breath and very excited about this topic. You can tell I get passionate about it. Y'all are awesome. Cohort members, y'all are awesome. If y'all are looking on the live feed, all the great comments. Yes, the Trapper Keeper. Yes. Yes, all the things. I had a red Trapper Keeper, and then I got a blue Trapper Keeper because blue is my favorite color. But my mama bought me a red one. Yes. All right, we're going to go ahead and shut this down and close it. Look, y'all, tell your stories. Go be amazing, even if you just have to be here in the house and, share it with your family, your dogs, and whomever else. Tell your stories. They mean the world. All right? Bye, y'all. Peace.